Hello there, Maverick Currency traders. It is the Currency Room again. Hopefully everyone's going to have a good weekend. Let's jump into this. In this session, we're going to be going through the news of the week. We're going to talk about what happened. Not a ton of news. We thought it was going to be a much bigger news week, but it ended up the tariffs being kicked down the road till August 1st. Then, of course, we're always looking for current setups.
All trades and analysis in this video are intended for professional traders only. This content does not constitute financial advice and is for educational purposes. This video is being released after a short delay due to Compliance Department review. Maverick members receive this content immediately as part of their daily trading resources. If you're ready to level up, consider joining Maverick Currencies. Our traders trade firm capital and keep 70 to 80% of profits. You bring the skill, we provide the backing. Let's get into today's market recap and see how the pros are trading the currency markets.
Let's talk about equities. Equities keep going. We hit new all-time highs about 2 weeks ago, and we just keep pushing through new all-time highs. As I mentioned last week, I talked about how this week I actually thought the market was likely to pull back, and it did the first 3 days. However, the tariffs that were supposed to hit on June 9th, they were basically pushed off till August 1st. We did get lots of saber rattling and lots of threats of tariffs, but as far as this point right now, no tariffs have changed whatsoever. That has been moved to August 1st. We also heard from the RBA on Tuesday night, and they unexpectedly, Monday night, Tuesday morning, unexpectedly did not cut rates. So this surprised the market. We're going to take a look at the Aussie. We've talked about how range-bound everything has been for a long time. We're starting to see 1 or 2 currencies start to break out of ranges, which is really encouraging to where we can actually look to trade more currency pairs. Then we also heard from the RBNZ, and they left rates steady as expected. They're already down at 3.25%. And then this week, cryptos was really the story. This was a surprise to me. I wasn't expecting cryptos to break out this week. I thought we'd break out later, but markets don't have to listen to me. They can break out whenever they want. Cryptos had a fantastic week last week. But we did get lots of central bank announcements. As far as economic reports, really only 2. GDP out of the UK came out a little bit worse than expected. It was supposed to be positive. It was negative. The pound is also breaking down. We'll take a look at that one. And then we had Canadian employment report, and it was a great number. It was a good number. The question is, did the CAD move on that? Well, we'll have to take a look and see. Remember, we had good news from the IV PMI out of Canada, and the CAD didn't move. We got good employment numbers out of Canada, and the CAD didn't move. Obviously, the CAD is not going to move no matter what happens, at least in the foreseeable future. Let's take a look at the final numbers for last week. S&P basically flat on the week. World Index flat on the week. Look at the move in crypto, 10% in the crypto basket. Gold moved higher, oil moved higher. This was a really solid bullish week for the market at the end of the week. And you can see the first couple days we're down, then we rallied back up, and you can see we're still just high basing. We are not out of a high base yet, but you can't be more bullish than this pattern. This is just a bullish pattern. And I've talked with a lot of traders over the past couple weeks, and this is a hated rally. And hated rally, what I mean is that nobody thinks the market should be up this high. Everyone is like, oh, there's so much worry out there with tariffs and this, but the market keeps going. These are the strongest markets. There's a saying called climbing a wall of worry. Those are the strongest markets where you have people that are doubting it, and so they're not buying into it. And if it goes higher, they're shorting into it, and then they've got to buy into it to get out of their shorts. When you need to worry is when everyone is slapping high fives and saying, oh, everything is great, everything is perfect, and the market's already run substantially. That's typically when you get some pretty decent pullbacks in the market. So this just looks bullish. Ankit, do you see anything other than bullishness here?
No, I mean, I would say that, the biggest indication of how strong the move is that, how much you get knocked down by negative news. And this is where, I always talk about gravity. It's almost like gravity just keep pulling it up. It comes down a little bit. We had plenty of negative news for the short term. And each time it just climb over that worry. So this is where the gravity is towards the upside, and it just keeps pulling up. So I think that that's really what we are likely to see, especially as we are in the summer months here when volatility is really low. Is that we just slowly creeping higher, but very small pullbacks in between.
Yeah, and I don't really see any reason to think this market's going to pull back. We are going into second quarter earnings reports in the next week, but for the most part, those are expected to be decent. And as decent comes out, then I think the market's going to be pretty happy with it. Here are the movements in the Forex markets. We like the yen short, and the yen was a great short last week. So the yen short has been working. We've got a lot of traders that have been working with yen short trades. Great week for them. And it really didn't really matter what you paired against it. You can see that there was a 1.5 to 2% move, even if you're paired like Kiwi against yen. The Aussie broke out nicely. We'll take a look at that. But everything else was constrained. And this is what we've been talking about really over the last month, maybe even month and a half at this point, is that there's lots of sideways action. There's lots of range bound. So if you were playing euro versus the pound, guess what? There wasn't a lot of movement. If you were playing dollar against the CAD, there wasn't a lot of movement. But if you're playing yen, then there was plenty of movement. And I think that's really what you have to keep doing is go to where the movement is. Look at these moves in crypto. Just a beautiful, beautiful move. Ethereum was the shining star at 16%. We'll take a look and see if there's more upside here in cryptos. So we've got a clearly bullish +3 market. We take a look at the bond market. It's hanging out in the middle of its range. We've talked about 4.2 to 4.6. Right there in the middle. The market's very happy with interest rates right here in the middle. It's fine. Even if it gets up to 4.6, it's going to be fine. If it goes past 4.6, then I think the market gets a little bit worried about interest rates. But I don't see any reason why it's going to do that. The Fed has been very clear what they're going to do. I don't see any reason for bond yields to move. Look at this breakout in crypto, and this is the crypto basket. We have been basing for a very, very long time, which means that this breakout likely has more power to it. The longer the consolidation, typically the bigger the breakout. So we do like cryptos here going forward. Next week, let's take a look at some of the economic news that's going to be coming out. We've got inflation data coming out for the US and Canada on Tuesday. So no news on Monday. So I'm thinking that the better part of the trading week next week is probably Tuesday through Thursday. I'm not looking to be super active on Sunday and Monday. We got CPI out of the US and Canada. We also have the CPI report out of the UK. The pound is in play. I think you can absolutely play pound short. If you're going to be playing it, make sure you understand that there is a CPI report on Wednesday. And then we get Aussie employment on Wednesday night, followed up by some retail sales in the US. Look, all of these reports, none of them are going to be earth-shattering. Unless there's some freaky number that no one expects. No one is really looking at these numbers right now and making decisions off them. They're really looking at the overall bullishness and money flows going into the market, and that's how they're making their decisions. So next week, if we're just taking a look at news, I'm going to call it a fairly light news week next week. Could you see anything on the news front other than tariffs that's going to get this market to move anywhere?
No, not at all. I think even the inflation numbers, unless they really come out of a surprise, usually a lot of that price action is already priced in. So I think we're in a good sweet spot where you have a direction, but you have low volatility, which is perfect because anybody that likes to follow a trend, I think that's the ideal market condition. But overall, market volatility is low, and I think we'll probably continue doing that. So these news events will, unless they're big surprise factor like we had this week with the Aussie, not a whole lot on the economic front.
Let's go in and check out the currencies that score them from +3 to -3. I'm going to start off with the cryptos. And here we are, just a beautiful breakout. We'll take a look at some of these charts closer. We'll take a look at some of these charts closer when we get into trades and see how long they've been consolidating. But you can see Bitcoin on this chart all the way back for 1.5 months. There's no reason to think there's not more. That being said, We're a little overextended on the shorter term charts. So we are just simply waiting for pullbacks and bases. Pullbacks and bases on Bitcoin here look like a really good setup. Next, let's go on to Bitcoin Cash. This was the one that just kept cranking higher, and everything else was basing. Bitcoin Cash is like, no, I am in an uptrend. And you can see these pullbacks are really nice. So it's the same thing. Pullbacks and bases on Bitcoin Cash. Ethereum had the biggest breakout all the way up to 3,000. I don't like it as much. Yes, it played a lot of catch up this week. It was underperforming and then it played catch up. Is that going to continue next week? No. At least in my opinion, no. It's already caught up. Bitcoin went up 6% and Ethereum went up 16%. It was underperforming by about 10%. It's already back up to where it was. I think you're still better off going with the relative strength in Bitcoin Cash and in Bitcoin. And I think you can say the same thing for Litecoin as well. It had underperformed a bit, wasn't the best one. It played a little catch up this week. It's still bullish. If you want to play this one, you still can. Just think that Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash are still the best places to be in crypto. I'll take a look at both of these charts, Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, when we get into the trading section. Okay, take us through the trend and velocity scores in Forex, please.
Absolutely. Well, let's just start with the good almighty US dollar. And must say that, dollar has definitely stabilized here quite a bit. Just to sort of do a quick recap, dollar has been one of the worst currencies so far in 2025, down like 7-8%. So, we talk about trends, we talk about, where we are in the price cycle. And as you can see that way we are in the price cycle, we are coming off from those lows here. We are still trending lower in the sense that we're still making lower highs. We haven't made a higher high and a higher low. We're still below those moving averages, but at this point, seems like it's kind of gone into this consolidation phase. Now, if this gets above the 50-day moving average, I'm going to play this more directionally to the upside. But so far, you can see that this was a great shorting play for the most part. Now it's kind of gone into the sideways. So I think this is where don't really love the dollar this short. But if the dollar can get above those moving averages, I wouldn't mind playing it on to the long side here. We have the backdrop, the bond yields, they're strong. We have seen I've seen the dollar and the bonds sort of deviate from each other, but I wouldn't be surprised if dollars sort of rise if the momentum starts to pick up there. So don't love it as a short. Probably want to take a look at it more on the long side if we can get above this little consolidation phase that we're seeing. Now, talking about short, my favorite short right now is the yen. And you can see why. Trending lower. We were basing, and you can see now we're just making, lower lows. And this is where we talk about intensity of the move, and this is definitely more on the lower side. You can see very small bounces, and they're all like sort of, it's almost like stair stepping lower. Like they're not exploding lower. So they are very gradual move, which again, I think we have seen this kind of move with the yen for the last couple of years, the last 3 years, I would say. So again, talking about short, dollar is no longer the viable short. I think the yen probably is the best short over here in the markets. Now, talking about some of the outperformance, we know growth currencies, some of the European currencies have done really well, including Swiss franc. You can see that thing still continues moving higher. The question I always get is that, hey, this looks overbought. Well, yeah, definitely it is in this overbought category here. So, but at the same time, it's not like you want to go and short right away, because you can see that we had a one down candle, but then that's getting recovered pretty quickly here. So maybe this can go sideways for a bit, but the move definitely it's a mature move, because this was range bound for the most part, but then has a big breakout. So overall trend looks pretty clear to me. But in the velocity side, you can see where we're seeing a bit of a flip in the shorter term. So I think I'm a little bit more cautious on some of these European currencies, because again, we already had a giant move in these currencies. Euro is in the same basket here. You can see it looks very similar compared to the Swiss franc. And velocity in the short term kind of kicked lower. So yeah, I'm a little bit more cautious here on the bullish side on the euro. I think we can see probably some rotation happening where we could see these outperformance kind of go into something else. And another good example for that is British pound. And British pound, you can see, was one of the best currencies, is now falling out of favor. And I must say that this lower high and a lower low that we see is kind of giving me a confirmation of a trend change. So I think where we are, we could see the outperformance sort of turn into underperformance. So I think we probably had to watch out for some of these European currencies as the momentum is shifting. If I take a look at the bunch, again, pound is the clearest to me on the short side. Now, when we take a look at growth currencies, let's start with the CAD. Well, CAD looks very, if you look at the chart right now, CAD looks very similar in the shorter term with the US dollar. So remember, like dollar and CAD, they kind of deviate from each other, then they come back closer to each other. If you just take a look at the CAD move here, this is looks very similar. It's in a consolidation phase. It's in a big range, and we're seeing a smaller consolidation in the big range. Now, today's jobs report was way out better than expected. It was 85,000 jobs created over a small number they were expecting. The unemployment rate actually dropped instead of increasing. So I think the news front was a good news. And if we get series of good news, and notably next week when we have the CPI, we'll find out. But I think the CAD can catch up a little bit here. Remember, I'm looking for rotation. I think CAD goes on top of the list here as well, especially if the dollar stays strong or holds that level. I think I no longer like the CAD to the short side. I probably look to buy some pullbacks. But the breakout which I was excited about was the Australian dollar. And remember, we were sideways for the most part in a lot of currencies, and we all had, all these currencies had their moment where they broke out. And after they broke out, they just became directional, where you see pullbacks get bought out, and we start to make a higher high and a higher low. I think Aussie is setting up nicely here for that after a long period of consolidation. And I mean, we are only seeing a May, June, July. That's 3 months of consolidation. That's a big consolidation. So at this point, the prior resistance is now the support. Any pullback, I think I would like to buy into, especially as we have the market momentum that's staying positive. Not a whole lot of bad news. I feel like Aussie is kind of late to that move because usually we see Aussie Kiwi do well when the broader market sentiment is positive, but I think this is where some of these currencies can really play a catch up. So I do like the Aussie to the upside here. And then lastly, the Kiwi, I would say not so much. Kiwi is not taking part in that outperformance. And you can take a look at Aussie's Kiwi as well, just to see the divergence. Could this play a catch up? Sure. But until it does, I don't really want to pursue that catch up. I think if I need to follow that relative to the weakness, Aussie again stands out the best in growth currencies. For alongside in the European currencies, pounds stand out the best in the short side, and between the dollar and the yen stands out the best onto the short side. So I think it's pretty clear where things are, where I need to sort of stay away from, and what things that are moving that I would like to take part of. So I think these are the markets that's slowly grinding higher and lower. It's just a matter of being on the right side of that trade. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you so much, Ankit. Great analysis. So here we have our trend score, and you nailed it right. I mean, the euro and the Swiss franc have been the clear winners in Forex, the clear winners. And we all know that trends will change. And so here we are. This right here is a snapshot of the relative strength of where we are at the moment. Relative strength tends to stick around a lot longer than people think. And I just mean that trends end up being longer than people think they're going to be. Like, who thought that the euro and Swiss franc would be able to basically go straight up for 6 months? Well, they have. That's what they've done. At some point, this will end. It's very dangerous to call those ends. And just like dollar has been the short for this dollar and yen, at some point that's going to change. So we don't want to project changes because that's very dangerous, because that is counter trend trading. We're saying, oh, the market is telling us this, but we think we're more smarter than the market. So we think that we're going to fade the euro Swiss franc. That has killed so many accounts. That being said, our job as traders is to look at the current situation and ask the question, what will this board look like next week? What will it look like 2, 3, 4 weeks down the road? And I think, Ankit, I do like your call in euro Swiss franc. either just going sideways or pulling back. I do think we are going to see a rotation as well, but we have to see it in the charts. We are starting to see a little bit of rotation in that dollar. As Ankit said earlier, if we can poke our head above that 50-day moving average, that's going to be a little confirmation that, oh, maybe that was the turning point for the dollar. We've had a clear signal that the Aussie has made a turning point. And we also, I don't say it's a crystal clear signal, but a good signal that the pound is also started to weaken quite a bit. We want to take a look at this and say, where do we think this board is next week? Do the cryptos stay strong next week? Do they continue to run? I think they do. I like the setup in cryptos. As Ankit said, we're in a super bullish, low volatility environment. This is where crypto shines. As far as what is moving right here, right now, the cryptos are where the strength is, and the Aussie. And pound and yen on the weak side. So for me, number one trade is going to be crypto. Number two trade is going to be trades like pound Aussie short and Aussie yen long. So those are going to be the trades that I want to focus on. Let's go ahead and look through some of those charts. Let's first go to Bitcoin. So this is a weekly chart on Bitcoin. So take a look. When we see these breakouts on these weekly charts, they can be really big. Now look at how long this consolidation was. This went from March to November. Basically, what was that, 7 months long? And then look at the explosive move we got out of it. Remember, I said earlier, the longer the consolidation, the larger the breakout. Here we have, we had this run here off this pullback. And so we had looks like about 8 weeks of consolidation. We're likely not going to get as big of a move as this one here. So this one roughly went from 70,000 up to 105,000. So let's call that for a 50% move is what it was. That was after 7 months of consolidation. This is after 2 months. So if we just knock that down, maybe crypto has a 15 to 20% run. We broke out at 111,000. So for me, if I'm doing those numbers, let's say I think it's going to have a 15%, 20% run, then it's like 130. 130 is probably where I'm looking at the high, the target here on Bitcoin. It's clearly running. It's clearly bullish. There's no doubt about that. You clearly want to be on the long side. The only question is timing. The only question at this point is timing. And this is where, again, pullbacks and bases. Pullbacks and bases are the timing. We had a breakout up to 112. You can see this is just a fantastic time to grab a trade. Just a beautiful time after that breakout. Confirmed breakout, pulls back for, this is a 4-hour chart, so pulls back for basically 30 hours and then rockets higher. Beautiful thing. We're looking for the same thing. Looking for the same thing. Give us a pullback, give us a base, something in this area here. And then when it breaks out of that, I think you can absolutely take a look at it. If instead we get a pullback, the question is, where are we going to go? I'm going to run some Fibonacci lines. Again, you typically see pullbacks into this 38.2 or down into the 50. So right here in this 115 area, I think 115,000. I think you want to be looking anywhere below 116,000. I'm now like, oh, this is a pullback. I'm looking to grab some shares. All I need is a reversal candle and a confirmation candle, and I can jump into the trade. I like this trade quite a bit. The big question is Bitcoin Cash better? I rarely trade Bitcoin Cash. This is one of those times where I think you can make the case that this thing is just stronger. It's just running here. It's already been in an uptrend. It already broke out of its all-time highs, as you can see. So we are, again, it's running right here, right now. At some point, yes, it's going to hit a level. It's going to pull back, but trying to be scared of those points or worry about those points, it's better just to get long and just have a trailing stop take care of everything else. On a 4-hour chart, a little extended, pullbacks, bases, I think that's where you want to be. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look at pound Aussie. The yen is super weak, but it also went down 1.5% this week. Typically, when things have an exhaustive move, like a big move, you get some consolidation. So that's why I'm looking at pound first, because I think pound is the one that's actually accelerating, whereas yen has already accelerated and likely to consolidate. So I like pound Aussie on the short side. And you can see on a daily chart, we're coming down and looking at some really key levels here. We already broke through this 206 area where there was some support. Yes, we have some support down here a little bit lower. After that, I mean, you can see that we are ready to break. And if it breaks that 205.20 area, you can see we've got a move down to probably 202. 202. That's a great move. That's a 300 pip move. It's about a 1.5% move. I like it quite a bit. The big question is, how big is this bounce going to be at these support levels? And this is where we don't know yet. So we're down to this really key support level that we had back here in May. We're getting a little long lower shadow wick here, so it's telling us it's trying to bounce here. You can see the bounce is not so great. I think, look at this on a 1 hour chart, you can see that it's not likely to bounce. As we get closer into it, you can see that there is no buying coming into pound Aussie. There's just none, which is telling me that this bounce is probably not going to happen. So if you're looking at this daily chart saying, oh, I want it to bounce up into this 206.50 area so I can short here, boy, this 1 hour chart's telling you that's likely not going to happen. The most likely thing is a low base breakdown to where you never get a bounce to get into it. So this is one where I think you want to take a look at this, the 4 hour chart. I think you can be hanging out here at just under 205 for an entry. And then once it hits, take the trade. I think you've got down to 202 as a target. So that's my favorite Forex trade of the week is pound Aussie. Okay, what do you want to take a look at?
Hey, Rob. Well, I think we're on the same page here as we take a look at some pound crosses. But outside of those, dollar yen jumps out. Again, looking at if I want to play dollar to the long side, I think the best pairing to play dollar against would be the yen. As you can see that this thing has been range bound for the most part. And once we start to get above those ranges, I mean, look at this little breakout that happened. We broke out and this time it held. I mean, last time we broke out and it had a pretty bearish candle and we went all the way down. This time around, the prior resistance became the support. That technically, this is a great looking setup. Now, the next level of target is about 148.32, but if this start to clear those areas, I wouldn't be surprised that this get back into the 150 to 155 area. I mean, there's definitely a lot of room for this to run. We talked about momentum. Momentum has been to the downside, and that's why I think I do like dollar on a bounce here because I think the focus is shifting from a dollar short to now a yen short. So I think for that, dollar yen could really stand a chance onto the long side. We can also take a look at CAD yen. If you're trying to decide between dollar and CAD, you can see this thing is also beautifully breaking out already. And if you take a look at a lot of the yen crosses, euro yen, Swiss franc yen, they're all at their record highs. So I think if you want to take a look at any yen other yen cross that can really play a catch up, I think is dollar yen and CAD yen. So I think these are the ones that I do like to the upside. That goes at the top of my setup here. And outside of that, again, pound dollar, if I want to go pound short, I mean, you can see where the momentum is shifting. And this is just hanging off that 50-day moving average. You can see in the past, since February, I mean, we have held that level for the most part. Especially back in April, we had a very nice bounce off of that. So remember, a confirmation of the trend change is when we start to make a lower high and a lower low. And that's when you know that the shift is sort of changing. And I think this is the reason why I've kind of shifted from dollar short to now probably a dollar long on pullbacks, but also take a look at the areas where it's already moving, it's already giving you a signal. I think these are the ones that we can pay attention to. Pound CAD is the other one. Like I said, I'm not 100% between dollar and CAD. Maybe dollar CAD will stay sideways for the most part, and I think this is where we can diversify some of the risk by doing dollar and a CAD position as well. So I think this one also are looking pretty bearish. I do like CAD here for the upside, especially as the economic data is getting stronger. So I think this is where we can start piling up for the next big move. That's all I have, Rob. Back to you.
It's really nice to see some rotation happening. We've been talking about how, hey, the only play had been like long euro currencies, euro and Swiss franc, and short yen, and that was about it. That was really, everything else was just flat and said, hey, it's not worth trading. Now we're starting to get some things to trade. Pounds in play, Aussies in play, and now I think if those are in play, remember, currencies are all about money flow. Money's been flowing into Europe and Swiss franc, euro and Swiss franc, just flowing in there. At some point, the money's got to flow somewhere else. So the question is, where's the money going to flow? And I think we're seeing it in Aussie. I think we're seeing it a little bit in CAD. And I think money's been flowing out of the dollar, and maybe money's starting to level out in the dollar. That's what we're seeing, is that it's no longer going down, so there's equal amounts of money coming in and out. If that does that shift to more money coming into the dollar after the tariffs are all done, possibly. I like your call on long dollar here as well, but I think we need a little bit more confirmation. Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Currency Room. Goodbye, everyone.